Welcome back to episode 2 of the handheld computer from Casio, the FP-200. So, in last episode, which I hope you have seen, if not, then go up there and have a look quickly before you start looking at this one. In episode 1, we looked at the power supply for the actual computer. We opened it up and we tested that the voltages were right and we connected it and saw it was working. We also looked at the floppy disk drive and opened that one up, looked at the power supply in there. This was very crisp and nice inside, so there was not much to actually clean up besides the outer casing. So this is also now tested and works. This leads us to the actual computer. What we did was we cleaned the top of the computer. So all the keys and the inside cabinet, we removed the key membranes here and cleaned all that. I have 2 corrections that I want to address. The first one is related to the LCD display up here. We had to remove 4 screws in order to take it out, but I also said that you had to bend these 4 ones out in order to get this one out. That is not correct, and you actually should definitely not do that. This or these 4, the purpose of those are that the PCB and the actual crystal display are 2 separate units and they are held together by the 4 here. So don't open these up, just let them stay. The 4 screws is all it takes to lift this out. The other or second thing, the correction I want to address is about the keys up here. I told you there were 2 different kinds of keys, a thin one and a thicker one. It's not all correct. There is actually 3 different kinds because these 5, including these 3, they are the same. But this one over here has a thinner height, so that actually goes on the on button. And if I do like this, you can then see that it has the same level as the actual casing, whereas the other ones are a little bit above the casing. So these were the 2 corrections I just needed to address before we actually start on this episode. So we also left off having 6 screws in total leftovers. These 4 ones over there, that's what we used to, we screwed out in order to get the top casing off. And these 2, they are the ones that holds all the ground cables into the actual casing. So the last thing before we start, I just briefly want to show you, and we'll come back to that also later on, are the 2 manuals that I was given together with this computer. The first manual is the reference manual, and it covers the built-in basic language, which is called C85. And this basic language is the same basic language that you have in the FP-1000 and FP-1100 computer. I also have these 2 computers from Casio and I will feature them later on. The other thing that's in this manual is this CETL thing. And if I take the computer back, the way you select those 2 different reference manuals or programming languages is through this switch up here that actually says basic or CETL. This is the mode. The CETL is, and now I'm really stretching it, is just a spreadsheet, but it's a very simplified spreadsheet program. And this manual covers both of these 2 languages. The other manual that I have is more a technical one. So this one is the service manual, and there's a lot of good information regarding the actual computer in this manual. There are even drawings. Let me open this one up. There are even drawings of all the computer parts in it. There's a bill of material in the back of this manual where you can see all the stuff that's needed if you were to be a service person for the computer. They will then tell you how much you should stock up, and they have prices. This is back in the days in 1983, so not relevant anymore. It also talks about all the different parts of the computer. So for instance, here it's talking about the power supply inside the computer. Here it's talking about the boards that we'll be having a look at and taking out, and so on and so forth. It's very, very in-depth manual. In the back, it consists of two. There's also this powerful library, handy personal computer for the Casio FP-200. This consists of a lot of pages, 260 pages. And what it has are different kinds of programs, all related to business things that you can do with the computer. And there are also some gaming and some about graphics and other stuff. So very nice manual. I found all the manuals online, so you don't need to get actually this. You can find the manuals online also. So let me put all this away. Take the top casing off. And then we will try to address the inside of the computer. So we always need to remove these components so that we can have a closer look, and I then can clean the outer casing. So I just want to say there are different kinds of screws, and you need to take every single one of them out in order to get all of this out, because this is all stick together with ribbon cable. So it's not just one board. No, it's everything at once that needs to go out. So for that purpose, you need two screwdrivers, two different sizes. And there are different screws, and I may not be showing you all the screws by now, but once we are starting to pull this one out, I will explain the screws again. So there's a tiny screw there, tiny screw there, a tiny screw up here, and a tiny screw up here. Then there's a bigger screw there and a bigger screw there. They're the same, they're the same, they're the same. And there are also, and I cannot show you right now, but once we have unscrewed this, lifted this up, there are screws underneath this, 3 screws. You can see one of them up there. There are 3 of the same that needs to go out, but that's not enough. You also need to take this one out. This screw is the same as the 2 other ones that we already have taken out in episode 1, which is just the part that connects all the ground cables from the top casing. But the 2 last screws are inside there. So way in there on each side for this connector, there are 2 screws that needs to be removed, and maybe you can see it in there and over there. So I will now unscrew all the screws, try to keep track of all the screws, so once we're done, when we have to put it back in, I know exactly where the screws are. So let me do that. So they're all out, and as you may see here, there are different kinds of screws, so you need to pay attention where everyone goes. These two went in front. These two came from up here, I think. These two came from there and there. These two came from there, and these three are coming from down there. These two, I should maybe address this. So if I lift this up, these two were standing down there, and on top of that, this plastic thing was down there. Probably, well, it was to prevent any connection from this board to the actual board down underneath. So that's it. Let's see if we actually can get the board out of the casing. And as I told you, there are 3 boards in total. And actually this one is the 4th board. I will assume I haven't opened it up yet. So we need to be careful with these 2 when we're lifting all this out. So let's try and see what happened. Everything is now out, but there's a connection. So let me try to do this. So there's something here going to there. And this is the reset button on the front or on the side of the casing. So I can't lift it more than this, but let's try to move it a bit over and see how we can address that. So seems that we have a tiny hiccup because this piece, which is just some soft thing, it's also on the PCB on the other side. I'll come back to that. This needs to get off in order for me to kind of like lift out the reset button. But on top of that, there's this ground cable. So what I think I need to do is to find my desoldering iron or soldering iron and desolder the 2 cables from these places up here, which then leaves this. And then this board is free. So I will put this aside because right now, right here, at this specific moment in my kitchen, I don't have that desoldering thing. So I can't do that right now. I will go get it, obviously. So I'll leave this right over there and then we'll just have a close look into what's left. So over here is where the external power supply plugs in. So that obviously needs to go out somehow. We need to figure out a way to get this piece up there out. Over here is the on and off button. There are 2 screws down there. So that shouldn't be a big problem to get this out. It also seems that there is some sort of shielding down here. And it's sadly welded into the casing. So that cannot be lifted out. What I'm thinking about is I want to wash this. I usually just plunge it in some soaping water and clean it. But with all these components, and especially with this over here, I'm not doing that right now. I need to take this away first. We could remove all the cables as it seems, but I'm not sure. And over here on this edge, I need to see if you actually saw everything. So over here, we have the power on and off. And this is also linked to the ground casing, and it's green, and due to the fact when it's green, this is ground. Yeah, so the ground is the ground casing that goes up here that is screwed to the casing with all the ground cables anyhow. So this is per definition ground, and I also need to desolder that in order for me to remove the on and off button. So this is a little bit more complicated to clean it, but I will clean it. So I think it's time. Maybe we should have a look at what's in here, because some of the cables go in here, and this looks like a plastic ribbon. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So this, okay, I see. remember this compartment over here, that is for, let me find them. That's for the batteries. That goes in here. And these are the connection. There's none in this, so these are all in one line. So these two power connection is the one that goes over to the on and off button first of all. Then it goes up here together with the external power to be rectified, and then it actually together with the two batteries down here, which is for storing the data. Once you remove the power supply and the batteries, you still have two batteries here that will keep all the memory in the computer. So you have three sources of power, one from the external power supply, one from here, and one from here. And this all joins together on the on and off button and then goes in here, all individually. So I will say that this cannot be taken off again unless I take the desoldering iron and take it off. So I will leave this on just for now, like this. This is some sort of isolation tape, I will assume. So what we need to do is I need to run to the office, get my desoldering iron and desolder this thing over here so I can remove the board from this casing. Then I will remove the on and off button and desolder that. Once these cables are removed, I can then wrap the cable, especially the on and off button, in some plastic, and then I can soak this and wash it. So that's the deal for right now. I will come back to you once I have done all this and washed it, and then we will have a closer look at the actual computer. Okay, quick status. So I haven't been to the office yet, but I decided to attack the reset button issue with this one. This was stuck on the side, and this reset button together with this, sorry, focus. So this reset button together with this grounding cable was stuck down there. So I managed to take this off the side and then lift these parts up. So the main board is now free. Then I noticed down there, if I can pull this out, this is what I do with handheld. There's a little notch there. Let me find the screwdriver. This one. So down there, let's move over there. This is combined, linked to this plate here. Let me turn it around like this. So if I bend this a little bit to that side, I can actually lift this power, which is this one, out. So as you can see, I've already bent a little bit, so I should be able to lift this very carefully out like this. So now this is out also. Then I moved to this side. This is obviously screwed down there, and this is the nut from the front, and it actually goes this way. So, sorry, it goes this way. And the two screws are back up there, so they are up here now. Once I lifted that, I was still stuck with this problem. What my goal is, I don't want to go to the office to get the soldering iron. So also what I then realized, and now I need to turn this around again. I'm sorry for handheld cameras, but I think it's the only way to explain all of this. So there are tiny feeds, or whatever we're gonna call these two there, and a cable goes through it. So if I were to take all the cables off, I had to break this off because they are again welded together. The same goes there. So this is then the white cable. So that's also the same issue. And again, it's, sorry, over here, let me turn back so we are where we started, and let's lift it. So here, over there, the blue and the yellow cable is also. So if I were to remove all the cables, I will break stuff. That's actually also down there. I will end up breaking stuff on the computer. So the status is, it's not needed, but I'll do it anyway. I'll wrap this in some cling film or a plastic bag or something. This part over here. I will wrap this. I will wrap this. And then I will just soak this in water. I will see before I put it in water if I can get the serial number off, because this is a piece of paper. Usually I can if I spritz it a little bit with IPA, and then I can scrape underneath it and get it off, but I'm not sure. I hope so, because I want to preserve it. The same goes for this number in there. Obviously, once we're done cleaning it, it needs to be dried. And drying is over here on the radiator. So, and this needs to dry for a day because I cannot have any moist of any sort inside this casing due to the fact I have this plate, and water will slip underneath this between the actual outer casing and the plate, that's for sure. So I need to be able to give this so much heat, but not extremely heat, but over a long time that it evaporates. That's very important. The same goes for all the connections for the batteries. So these springs and stuff also needs to have that. So that is the plan. So no need for soldering because it won't help much. I will have to break stuff anyway. So that's the goal. Let me do all this instead of desoldering and then come back to you once this is clean, and then we can move over to this piece. So the casing is now on the radiator. So it's been heated a little bit up, so I'm sure that all the water is out, but it's washed. So we will now move over and have a look at the actual computer board itself. I have taken the manual with me because I just want to show you how the manual actually supports me understanding the board. Let me start by showing you, this is then the back side, but this is how you look at the computer when you open it up. There's a front side underneath it. So I want to start by addressing the manual. So it starts by having the paragraph 3, which tells us about the specification, and it tells about the 8085 computer, which is an 8-bit computer, and in this case, let me zoom in a little bit more. In this case, it runs at 6.144 megahertz, and this CPU, I will show you in a second, is compatible with the Intel 8085. Then it talks about that the RAM, it has a whopping 8K of RAM built-in standard, but due to the expansions, which I showed you in episode 1, you can actually expand it to 32 bytes. It also has some RAM, and the RAM inside is 32. I will show you that also on the board, and that can be expanded by 1 slot, so it goes to 40K. Then it talks about the display, and this display in text mode is 20 characters by 8 lines, or it also has graphic modes, so these are the dimensions 64 by 160. If I then move a little bit further down, it talks about the I/O interfaces, which is the gate array that controls, not only the CPU itself, but it also controls the cassette interface, the printer port, and the serial port. And then it talks about how fast the individual ports are. If I then move further into the manual, yes, this is all about addressing and stuff. It then talks about the actual CPU. This is the CPU. Once I show you the board with the CPU, you'll see it's not the same shape, but it doesn't matter. So here we have all the connections on the CPU, and it talks about how it actually works together. And I just want to read out further in the manual about the gate array, because I think this is like super neat. So it says, after the CPU, the next most important device in the F200 is the CMOS gate array. The gate array interfaces between the CPU and the I/O devices, such as the printer port, the parallel port, and so on. The gate array simplifies the entire system. The gate array programmed for the FP-200 can access the LCD display, the RS-232C port, printer, mini plotter, CMT, which is the cassette, and the keyboard. Kind of cool. And then it shows you the actual CPU, and then it shows the block diagram. If I then move further into the manual, I showed you that previously. And there's like a complete diagram of the whole system board. Here we have the CPU, here we have the gateway, over here we have some RAM, and here we have some power supply coming in, and there's also the ROMs and stuff, and the timer and all that. It's all connected here, so would I had some problems with the actual board, I could actually trace it. So let's put this a little bit aside, and let's move in here. So this is as it's been taken out of the computer, but this is the backside. And let me just focus in on this area here. So, and I need to, because I shouldn't be touching it. So let me just find my screwdriver. So this is the CPU. This is the 8085 CPU. It's tiny. Let me zoom a little bit more in. It's tiny, and as you can see, this is a square, where in the diagram it's not the same. This over here is then the gate array, sorry. And I zoom a little bit out and move over here, and underneath this we have those four. These are 2K RAM modules combined together in the whopping 8K. So let me then turn the board around. So here we have the front side with a lot of botch wires going on, but that's fine. So this one is the power supply. This is also for power supply. This is for the external connection with the printer port and the cassette port and the RS-232C. And I'll zoom in a little bit. And over here we have the ROM. This is the ROM that holds the BASIC and the spreadsheet program in it. Over here we have the clock, the oscillator. So this is that runs the timer. And somewhere back here, over there, I'm touching it with my fingers, this is bad. This one is then the actual timer. And if I go back to the manual, just because it's a bit nice and also cool, if I move over to paragraph 6.2, it then states timer. A programmable timer used in this system, the FP-1021, can count time, as in hours, minutes, and seconds, keep track of the dates, month, and year, including leap year. It has two time indication modes, either the 12 hours or the 24 hours. And it also holds non-volatile 26 by 4-bit RAM memory protected by an external battery. So that's the battery department that we talked about. So that's really nice. I think this is what I want to show you. Before I assemble it, I will just go and have a look at some of these greases that are on the board and clean that with IPA and some cotton. Just, it's not needed, but now that it's open, I have it on the table, I will just clean it anyway. So this is what I'm gonna do now, and once that's done, I will then take our casing and assemble it back. So let me do that now. All put back again. So all we need now is to connect the top casing. Before we can put in the 2 ribbons, we need to connect all the ground wires. And I do recall that this one over here goes up here together with the one that is there, so up here. And these 2 thinner ones, they go together in this spot, and this one just hooks in there. So let me just do that. So before I actually screw the last screws in the casing, let's put some batteries back in it and test whether it's actually working. So I'll start by putting the batteries in the back. And these 2 batteries, they go here. And then I will turn it on here, and we have a success. Because we have ripped out the battery, I hope you can see it. It states a lot of error messages on the display, and that's just due to that the memory is now completely screwed, and we just need to reset it. Therefore, there's a command actually called reset. And there we have it. We are now back where we should be, and it's all working. So let's turn it off again, pull out the batteries, because then it's just easier, because I don't have the lid right now. So let's take that out again. And let's find a way to put the casing back. We need to remember we have the hinges that needs to be clicked in on both sides. So before I click it in, I just need to see, yes, seems fine. Yeah. And yes. So let's try to take the screws back in. All done. I also removed the markings and I ensured that they are dry, but I don't have any glue here right now. But this one goes there and the top one goes in there, so I'll fix that later on. Let's put the battery back. And let's leave this out, because I want to take this forward and show you how the floppy drive actually works together with the computer. So this needs to go in here. Let's put it in like this. And due to we don't have any power on the computer, and as it states in the manual, when you use the external floppy disk drive, you need to connect the power supply, which I have up here. So I'll put that on the side and we will turn it on like this and like this, and it's working. Again, I need to do the reset, and there we are. I also have a floppy disk. It's a single-sided. So this only holds 70K. So there's not much space on a floppy disk for this, but let's just put it in. As maybe you can hear it spinning up. Closing it. And what you do on the computer here is that you write file. I think it's in Pro. Maybe not. Let's do just file. Not working. Turns out I didn't push this far enough inside, but sorry. So let's turn it off. Turn this one on. Turn this one on. Immediately this starts spinning. If I move it up, and hopefully we can see it, I'm not sure. There we go. So if I write files, it now lists all the files on the disk. What we can do, just to clarify it's actually working, let's make a program. 10 CLS, which should clear the screen, 20 print high, and it's all uppercase, but if you hold down the shift key, sorry, I should move it a little bit further away. So if I hold down the shift keys, it makes lowercase. So H, E, J, and then 30, go to 20. So here's the program. And if I do run, it should just say hi all the time. Up here we can stop the program, we can break out, and we can stop it and pause it. So I'll break it out. That's it. Let's do save. If I can spell, there we go. And let's call it test. Enter key. Done. If I then close the program, turn it on, the program is actually still in the computer. So if I do list, it will list the program. But if I do system, I think it just tells the system the memory. So is it clear? Is it new? I think it's new then. I'm rusty. Basic. Do list to confirm there's nothing. Do load. Shift and we call it test. Enter. List. And our program is back. Run. And it says hi and break up there. That's it. This is a world premiere of the FP-200 as disassembling, cleaning and assemble it again, combined together with the floppy disk drive unit, which is called FP-1021FD1. All working. So all that's left is to load in a lot of programs, and I'm not sure if you want to see programs running on that. So please in the comments write to me if you want me to make a program, an episode just about punching in some programs and running them. Maybe it could be some simplified games and stuff. There are loads and loads of programs on the net for this unit, and there's some in the manual also. So I can do that in another episode. So just write to me in the comments and tell me if you would like to see an episode of that. This concludes this episode. I just want to thank you for sticking along, watching this, and see you soon. My name is Taibo, and goodbye.